Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Why are men giving up on marriage? Let's check it out.
Growing up, I always assumed I'd get married, have kids, start a family. That's actually one of the reasons why I built this house as big as it is. It's over 3,000 square foot because I figured that if I'm going to have a family, I need someplace to put them. But over the years, my mindset on that has completely changed. I'm 40 years old now, and I've basically given up on the idea of starting a family. And there's a few reasons for that. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of guys out there that can relate to this, and that's why I'm making this video, because it has become increasingly difficult for a guy to confidently go into a relationship and be okay with getting married, having kids, and starting a family. One of the primary reasons for me, aside from the fact that I'm 40 years old now and I'm kind of stuck in my ways, but I decided several years ago that the idea of having a family is pretty much not going to happen. Because, number one, there's a lot of crazy indoctrination that's going on with kids and stuff these days in schools. The stuff they're teaching kids is just freaking abhorrent, and I do not agree with any of it. They're pushing all these sexual agendas and these crazy ideologies in schools now. And when you're a parent and you're sending your kid off to school, that's all this time that you don't have with the kid, because it's up to you as a parent to shape your kid into the person you want him to become. And to teach.
Now, just to interrupt him there, he brings up a lot of good points. So, I grew up in a house roughly about the size that he said he built there. And that's a pretty good amount of space, to raise a family, have a couple kids. Um, but he's bringing up some really key issues here. Men are looking at it like, okay, if I have kids, if I get married and have kids, who's raising my kids? What are they being taught? And basically, men really don't have, I can tell you guys that men, for the most part, do not have much say so over what their children are taught in the schools. What happens? It's men have been disincentivized. Let's put it that way. But let's continue to listen. I could go on, but let's continue to listen. Just remember that in any situation, people need incentives. Human beings need incentives to do anything. They have to be incentivized. Without that, we have what's happening here.
Teach them right from wrong and essentially protect them from all the things that you don't want them to see. But when they're in school, you can't do that. And the only alternative to that is private schooling or homeschooling. But then, with homeschooling, you're taking your kid away from the social interaction and all the things they be learning when they're in school, as far as how to socialize with people, how to make friends, how to deal with people in general. And that's a very important part of life. So it's kind of a give or take. But, for me, the idea that my kid's going to be stuck in school learning all this crazy stuff and not getting the proper education, especially not the education that I would like to see them get, which would be like critical thinking, life skills, finance, money, skill trade, all these very important things in life that they really don't teach in school. So that was a big thing for me. And just the direction of the world,
Again, really good points. I used to wonder when I was a kid, well, I'd say I was probably about a teenager, somewhere in my teens. I used to wonder, like, why is it that we go through, if you count kindergarten, right? It's 13 years of our lives, right? From kindergarten to 12th grade. And then we graduate as a senior in high school. And what does it really count for? You can't go out into the world and get a decent job after 13 years of your life in school and being educated. You can't go out into the world and go, oh, I've got a high school diploma, guys, so I'm good to go. No, you almost have to have some kind of higher education, or be lucky enough to have your own successful business. And there's a few that, are inherit money and whatnot.
the crazy way the world was going for a while, and kind of still is in a way, I couldn't imagine bringing a kid up in that, because I myself find it hard enough to navigate sometimes. I went through a bunch of crazy stuff with my health. I know all about suffering and what it's like to feel completely lost, hopeless, have no sense of direction, no purpose. You can't find meaning in life. And, I've suffered from anxiety and depression and all these horrible things. And that was hard for me. So the idea that I would have a kid and bring them up in this crazy world and possibly have them suffer through a lot of the same crazy things that I suffered through is just something.
You know what's sad, guys? There's a tremendous amount of people. We have record numbers of people on um, antidepressants and anxiety meds, amongst many other things. It's like I said in one of my other videos. You've got to start asking yourself questions like, when there's certain things going on in your society, you've got to start wondering why certain things are happening, why certain things are thriving. I'll give you a quick example. There's a company out there that does dialysis for kidneys, for people with failing kidneys, right? And, hey, God bless them, they're trying to save people's lives. But you've got to ask yourself, what is going on in our society when people have to build these, they're able to build these entire empires, these huge empires, off of treating people's failing kidneys. What's going on? And they start, and then that starts getting into, okay, well, what's in the food, and then people start talking about the corporate food system and so on and so on. So anyway, let's continue.
Something that I decided I'm not willing to live with. And another big reason is because as a guy, going into a relationship, getting married and stuff, it comes with a lot of risk. And it's no fault of our own. It's no fault of the male or the female sex. It's the way the court system's set up. It's the way.
Oh, lordy, lordy, don't get me started. He just hit a serious subject. It is the way the court system is set up. Most of the men that I talk to specifically state that they would not get married. And this surprised me because I was like, all right, the young generation, they're probably not going to mention it that much. But no, they've seen their brothers go through it, their fathers, their uncles, their friends, and so on. The family court system is unconstitutional and unlawful. If you look at the Constitution, anyway, it's a whole other conversation. But basically, what has happened is the family court has spent decades terrorizing, extorting, exploiting, and kidnapping and caging fathers, which essentially marginalizes them. And at best, they have to fight tooth and nail just to get a little bit of time with their kids, right? I could go on. Don't get me started on a tangent. Don't do it. Don't do it. I hit the wrong thing there. All right, guys. Are you ready? Let's go.
Our society is geared in general. It's geared in favor of the woman. If a family gets divorced, most of the time the woman's going to come out on top. And as somebody who has established a very good life for myself, I'm financially secure, I'm debt free, I own my own home, I've accomplished a lot of fantastic things in my life. So going into a relationship and getting married comes with a significant amount of risk. That's true for me and pretty much every other guy out there. And again,
Huge amount of risk, and then you're faced with, if it doesn't work out, which if you look at the stats out there, the chances of marriage not working out, especially in the West, are huge. Like, you've got to ask yourself, and this is for the women too. Okay, the men and the women. I want you, the women, to particularly think about this. There's a lot of women out there saying, "Well, I don't understand. Where are all the good men? I can't find a good man." Okay, well, I get it. Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that need a lot of work on a lot of things. There's uh, good and bad on each side. There's a lot of women that need a lot of work. There's a lot of men that need a lot of work, right? But you got to ask yourself, ladies, if you were a man, let's say it's a business contract, because that's basically what a marriage is viewed, how a marriage contract is viewed by the system, okay? So if you're a man, would you want to sign a business contract where there's a really high chance that you're not only going to lose, uh, but you're going to lose everything. You'll lose your finances, your money, you'll lose your assets, you lose your children, right? So no one in their right mind is going to sign a business contract that's extremely lopsided one way, right? Nobody's going to do that. Let's listen.
Again, it's no fault of our own. It's just the way society is geared. They've made it a point to destroy the nuclear family, to tear the
By
family unit
design.
apart, and I think it's all by design. I don't think they want us to have a strong family unit, and it seems like everything
Guys, I didn't plan that. This is my first time watching this.
in our modern society is set up that way. When you get a divorce, pretty much all your stuff goes to the woman, or at the very least gets split 50-50. And if you've worked your entire life,
Get split 50-50 if you're lucky.
especially as a guy being the provider, to provide all this stuff for your family, and if you come into that relationship having a lot of things and having established a very good life for yourself, you could have all that stripped away. And in a lot of cases, it could be borderline impossible to ever get that back. Because again, the guy is usually stuck paying child support or alimony or both. So his wages now become significantly less, and his ability to regain all the things
Yeah, a friend of mine coined a term because of alimony and child support devastating so many men. He coined the term dumpster daddy, right? And so the kids on the weekends can say, "Hey, let's go see Dumpster Daddy," because he can't afford to live anywhere else but a dumpster, right? Or in a cardboard box, side of the road.
that he's lost, especially if he's at the midpoint in his life or later in life, because the way the career field is set up is that it favors young, impressionable men or young, impressionable people in general. Because when you have an older person coming into the workforce, especially trying to start a new career, they have old habits. And a lot of companies don't want to try and train those old habits out of a person. They would rather hire somebody young that they can train from the ground up, that's going to show up to work bright eyed and bushy tailed. They're going to have energy. They're going to last many, many years in the workforce. And taking on an older person can just, in a lot of cases, be a liability. And another terrible thing that often happens, especially in family court, is that the dad ends up going from being 100% dad, he's there for his family all the time, to all of a sudden you get a divorce and he becomes a 15% dad. And the thought,
And the standard guys is from what I understand, the standard is like every other weekend for a father. Okay, so if you break that down, every other weekend is, if you take a month, that's an average of 30 days. 2 weekends out of a month, every other weekend. That's 4 days a month. 4 whopping days out of an entire month that a man gets to be father to his children. That's unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable. So who ends up having the children in their hands most of the time? The state, really. The state.
that I wouldn't be able to see my kid every single day or whenever I wanted, and I would be granted visitation rights like I'm some sort of criminal, is a terrifying thought. And another big reason is just because I am a result of not only my own life experiences, but of the life experiences that occur around me. And I've seen this stuff happen time and time again. There are very few people in my life that have stayed successfully married throughout their entire lives and haven't had happen a lot of the things that I just mentioned. And as somebody who has spent half their life building this life for myself and making it as secure as possible and setting myself up in the best way that I possibly can, the thought of having that stripped away because of divorce is something I am just not willing to live with. It's a risk I'm not willing to take. And don't get me wrong, like my parents, they're still happily married. They've been married my entire life. They'll never get divorced. I've got family members that are still happily married. They were married their entire lives and they never got divorced. A lot of this stuff didn't happen for them, but for the younger generation, I see it time and time again. And it seems like the odds of somebody having a happy, healthy relationship, staying married and not having all these horrible things happen is getting more and more rare. And I think there's a lot of
It is, and I got to tell you, ladies, you guys get upset about the no fault divorce laws possibly being changed and this and that. What you've got to understand is that you've got one of two choices. Okay, You can either level the playing field so that marriage is something that a man can survive even if he gets divorced, or you're going to lose your country. You're going to lose your society. It's one or the other. You can't just keep doing this. Hey, everything's cool because we've got all the power when it comes to family court and this and that. You're losing your men because you won't stop, and you won't stop. It's ladies. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you wanted to, you could push almost overnight because women have a lot of power in this society. Almost overnight, you could change the divorce laws if women really pushed for it and said, "Hey, we want our men and the fathers of our children to be treated equally." If you're really for equality, there you go. Okay. A lot of men are a woman's son, right? So think about it.
Reasons for that. I think social media plays a huge role in that. We all get focused on the next shiny object syndrome. Something nice, new, and fancy comes along, and we want to trade up. All of a sudden, what we have isn't good enough. We're led to believe we need all this nice stuff, and everybody's perception of everyone else's lives online is that everybody's living this perfect life. You only see the highlights on these Instagram reels, and on social media, you never see the ups and downs. So your expectations become exponentially higher. And then when it comes to things like sex and intimate relationships, we expect so much more because we've been watching porn and we see all this crazy, these crazy sexual experiences on TV, and everybody's cheating on their husbands.
I wanted to pause it there because I want to make a key point here. This is what he's saying right there. That is why it is important for a man and a woman to find someone that is a Christian, in my opinion. I'm a Christian, not religious. True Christianity is not a religion. Okay, Jesus never said go build a religion or go make a religion. True Christianity is walking with Christ and living for Him. And this is why, in my opinion, you need to find someone, particularly if you're a man, you need to find a woman that is truly in her heart. She's truly living for God and Christ. 100%. You need to meet a woman that her heart is on fire for God and Christ. Okay, you need to find a woman that she loves Jesus more than anything in the world. Okay, as a matter of fact, you need to find a woman that puts Jesus first before you. Oh, why is that? Why would you say that, man? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if a woman puts Jesus first before you, okay, then that means she's not going to divorce you unless, because she's putting him first. She's putting his rules, his standards, his belief system first. So what does that mean? What does it mean for you as a man? Does it mean, oh, I come in second, this sucks? No. It means that the only way that woman's going to divorce you, okay, God allows for divorce for two reasons that I'm aware of anyway. Adultery and death. No, that doesn't mean you can go murder your spouse, okay, because you're tired of them. If your spouse passes away, right, or if they commit adultery. Now, if they commit adultery, then it's still your choice. Do you want to stay with them or not? But there you have it.
And wives, and we just think that's the way it should be. So when it comes to going in the bedroom, we have these super high porn star expectations that can never be met. We objectify the opposite sex. We think that it has to be some crazy, awesome experience every time we have an intimate relationship. But what we've done is we've hyper-stimulated ourselves with all this content and all this media that throughout all of history we would have never had access to. And it's completely rewired and screwed up our brains.
He's right, 100%. People that do that, it rewires their brains. We are living in unprecedented times, particularly when it comes to that. Okay, and look, guys, when it comes to sex, all right, if your spouse, if you're supposed to be having sex with your spouse, right? Someone that you're married to, and it is supposed to be about making love. Okay, it's supposed to be about making love, and in that making love, there's a commitment between the two of you that you stick with, right? That you honor, that you value, and that you will fight tooth and nail for. Okay, you'll be dedicated to. You're willing to sacrifice. Marriage is not about, oh, me, me, me. What can I get out of it? Marriage is about sticking to your commitment and sacrificing for each other, living for each other. But first, you're living for Him. You're living for Christ. But I got a little off point though. Sex is supposed to be about two married people making love. It's not just a act of physical lust and pleasure. I mean, it can be sometimes, but you get what I'm saying.
That's the bottom line, is that the stuff we're exposed to is not natural. The stuff that we see is not stuff that we should be seeing, especially not in the amounts that we're seeing it. We're not meant to have this level of pleasure and dopamine hits and instant gratification in the way that we do in the modern age. And that has completely skewed our view of the world, especially when it comes to relationships. And what it boils down to is I think it's essentially stripped away our moral fabric. It's taken away our values and our ethics in general. And I think it's really caused us to lose respect for our partners. And I see that in relationships all the time too, is that partners don't really respect each other in the way that they used to. It's a different world than what we used to live in.
Well, in particularly when you're watching adult stuff, right? I think what happens is people start to look at their significant other as like an object, like an object of lust, instead of looking at your spouse or your significant other as with admiration and love, right? Like, oh, I really love this person and I respect this person. You look at them like a piece of meat, basically, right? You look at them for purposes of physical pleasure.
50 to 100 years ago. It's become so easy now to just throw in the towel and to just give up and walk away knowing that you're going to be financially secure. You're going to walk away with at least half. You're going to, get the kids, or you're going to get split custody. You're going to get half the money. You're going to get whatever. And you're going to be able to just walk away with no ramifications and start your new life, your new relationship. And it's all going to be fine and dandy. Whereas that used to not be the case, and people weren't so eager to do that before we've gotten caught in this modern, materialistic, commoditized society. Because everything has become commoditized, including relationships. And that's a terrible thing, because I think it's really just taken us away from what is natural. It's pulled us away from the family unit. The man is no longer there to support the family, which throughout all of history, the man played a very important role in the family.
And what's important to say there is now it's the state. The state has become daddy, right? The state has become the husband and the father. Um, for any of you interested when it comes to family court and child support, look up Title, I think it's called Title 4D. Check out Title 4D and see what that's all about.
Because he was the protector, he was the provider. And that is simply not the case now, because the man can be stripped away from the family unit, and
Very
essentially
easily.
the family doesn't need a man to get by. And don't get me wrong, that is a great thing from a woman's perspective, because it makes the woman independent. And I think women should be independent. They should be completely empowered to live the life of their dreams and to go after all the things they want, and they should not have to be tethered to a man. And that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that a lot of these ideologies.
Yeah, if they so choose, if a woman so chooses to be independent, she's like, well, I don't want to get married. I don't want to be tied to a man. That's completely, hey, you're a free person, with free will, and you can so choose to decide that. That is absolutely fine. Um, Absolutely fine. The Bible even talks about, people, the pros of people staying single, right? It also says, when it comes to a man finding a wife, a man that finds a wife, he finds a good thing. So either way, guys, either way, whatever's in your heart, whatever you want to do. If you want to get married and that's in your heart to get married and have a family, then by all means do it. Because when you get old, you're going to regret it. You're going to be lonely and you can't go back and fix it. If your heart's set on being single and you want to stay that way, you want to just focus on yourself and, maybe have a career and travel and whatnot, then by all means do that.
That we've adopted around splitting apart the family unit has really led to the detriment of relationships in general. Because the fact of the matter is, when you get into a relationship, and every relationship I've ever gotten into, I think it's fundamentally important to support your partner, to have respect for your partner. You should respect your partner in the same way that you would want to be respected.
100%.
You should
Yep.
build your partner up, not tear them down. It should be
Yep.
about making each other a better version of yourselves than you were when you came into the relationship. That's what a relationship is meant to do. It's meant to support each other. It's meant for being there for one another through the good times and the bad. You should encourage your partner to chase after their dreams, to go after the things in life they want, to enjoy their hobbies, to do things that don't always include you. And that's another thing I often see, is that a lot of people get very codependent and they become very reliant on the other person. And the moment that they step out and want to do something outside of what they're doing every single day, the other person gets mad. And that can really hold you back. It can hold you back from life. It can hold you back from pursuing your dreams, from doing the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, codependency, guys, is, I mean, you can look this up and research it. I'm not going to spend time talking about it, a lot of time talking about it, but codependency in any relationship is really bad. It's really bad. It can be very dysfunctional and lead to a really toxic, destructive situation for sure, for sure.
And just enjoying life in general. And the idea of being held back and held down and tied to someone else and not being able to do all the things in life I want to do without somebody else getting mad because of that, that for me is another very terrifying thing. Because if you have to give up your hobbies and you have to give up some of the things you enjoy, and your partner gets mad because you want to do those things, you're essentially giving up a part of yourself. And that's the type of stuff that will eventually lead to you resenting your partner. But in the modern age, as soon as we hit a rocky patch, we're just willing to give up. We throw.
And that's a real big thing too. There, I was discussing this with a friend the other day. People are totally in modern society. People are totally missing the value of commitment. When I say commitment, I'm talking about if you go through a rough time or a rough patch, you don't just give up. You don't just give in and, oh, well, next, I'm tired, I got bored, whatever, I'm tired of trying. I can tell you this. I have seen really beautiful relationships come out of situations where people were just ready to just say goodbye to each other. They were so done. But they worked through it. It was hard, it was extremely challenging, but they worked through it. They took the time to try to understand each other, and that comes through respecting each other. You've got to have respect for each other in order to have the desire to understand or try to understand, want to understand the other person, right? That takes listening, not just hearing, listening skills, right? Processing what they're saying. And I've seen people come out of on the other side of those situations, and they're even closer and happier than they ever were before.
Throw in the towel, and we completely destroy the family over something that's probably extremely petty and could, in most cases, be completely avoided. So because of the way our modern
Petty.
world's set up, because of the way things are designed, the court systems, and the next shiny object syndrome, and all this instant gratification that we have, and everybody just wanting to jump to the next nicest thing and upgrading, these are the reasons why I've given up on the idea of starting a family. After working almost 20 years, half my life, to build the life of my dreams, the life I have now, to go into a relationship and get married with a very high probability of that not working out and me losing everything that I've worked so hard to build, is not a risk that I'm willing to take. So if you're a guy out there and you're watching this and this resonates with you and you can relate.
I mean, guys, it's a really big risk. Guys and girls watching this, like I said, the girls have to really understand it's a huge, huge risk, because once these men get divorced, they have no power. You have no power. You have no power. The family court doesn't care about fathers and men. They just, generally speaking, there are some judges that do. I've encountered a couple. One I know that he is a great guy and he really cares. He really cares. But that's the exception rather than the rule.
This, let me know in the comments down below. If you have experience with this, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm very curious to hear what y'all have to say about this. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way because I know there's a big black pilled and men go their own way movement going on right now. And while I don't take it that far, I don't completely swear off women and dating, and I'm not against having relationships. The idea of getting married and starting a family is not something I'm willing to do, which is a terrible thing because, again, I think that's the way it's designed. That is exactly what they want. And the unfortunate thing is,
Hmm.
they're essentially getting what they want. If they want less people to start families and have kids, it's what they've gotten. And while this can sound kind of disheartening, I don't want to make this video all doom and gloom, and that's not what this is about. Because there is a silver lining to this, and that silver lining is that when you remove all expectations from a relationship and you go into a relationship with just the idea of wanting to get to know the person on a deeper level, wanting to build a connection and establish something meaningful together with no.
That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's supposed to be all about. And I do think the destruction of the family is by design. 100%, I believe that. 100%.
Expectations of getting married or having a family and not having that.
And if you look at it spiritually, it's part of the fallen world. There is a battle against anything fatherly because he is the Heavenly Father. That's a whole other discussion.
Idea being held over your head and having to live up to those expectations, expecting that one day you're going to eventually get there. From my experience, it can really help you establish a much deeper connection with another person. Because when you remove those expectations, it takes a lot of pressure off both you and your partner. It removes that worry and that self doubt that you might otherwise have. It keeps you from trying so hard and forcing the relationship to go in a direction that you want it to go, which essentially makes the relationship more organic. It makes it more natural. And that's an amazing thing
There you
because
go.
if you're forcing the relationship to go in a certain direction, the other person may be opposed to it, but they may go along with it. And that can string you along in a relationship that may eventually go nowhere, essentially wasting both of your time. But by removing all those expectations and all that stress and letting things happen more naturally, the relationship is going to go in the direction it's meant to go. And by removing that burden from yourself and all that pressure, it really frees you up to go after the things in life that you want. If you have a dream, if you have goals, you're completely free to chase them. You don't have to worry about somebody else. You don't have to worry about a partner or somebody that's depending on you. You can pick up, you can move across the country, you can pursue your passions and your dreams no matter what and how big they are. The sky is the limit. And when
That's why I said, guys, there's pros and cons, to being married and not being married. But also, then again, it depends on how you look at it. Somebody that wants to be married and have a family, they might say, hey, there's absolutely no cons to that, right? That's what's in my heart. But then again, somebody that wants to remain single, they might say, no, there's absolutely no cons to that. That's what's in my heart. So it's all in the personal perspective, right? So
you don't have somebody else that depends on you, you're your own limiting factor. And that is very, very powerful because every single one of us holds the power to wake up in the morning, start a new day, and create the life of our dreams. And another amazing part to this silver lining is that when you're not tethered to somebody else and you're not codependent and you're alone, you can learn what it is to be truly happy with yourself and to love yourself without needing somebody else. Because you will never be happy or truly love someone else until you learn to love yourself, until you learn to be happy with yourself, by
100%,
yourself.
guys.
And that is something
100%.
I've found true for myself because there was a time where I swore off dating, I swore off women for 3 years. And those were some of the best 3 years of my life. I learned so much about myself, and all those things I just mentioned, I accomplished. Now I can be completely alone, just me and my dog, and I'm just as happy, if not happier, than I would be if I was in a relationship with somebody else. Our
All
lives
right.
are.
So there you have it, guys. That's his next video. It just started there, but there you have it. I'm gonna leave the link below. You guys, like he was saying in his video, leave comments down below. Let me know what you think. Men and women. You guys leave your comments and say, hey, what's your take on all this stuff? But I can tell you that I think that the family was the foundation. It is the foundation of a solid society. You have to have a solid foundation to build anything, right? You've got to have a solid foundation to build a skyscraper that lasts, right? So,
Our lives are.
The bottom line is, guys, I believe in conclusion that the family was destroyed on purpose by design so that certain powers that be could take over. My theory is that they had to figure out how to profit off of each individual as much as they possibly could. They had you look at a country like a human farm, okay? The bankers, the corporations, and the government all had to figure out how can we maximize productivity and profit from each and every individual. Okay, well, first they had to get the family out of the way because with a society that has a tight knit family structure, you can't do that. It's impossible. So they had to turn men and women against each other, divide and destroy the family, get the kids in the hands of the state, and so on, and get adults, get women in the workforce and all that, right? So that if you think about it, today, every aspect of our lives we're living for or we're doing something for on a daily basis: corporations, government, and bankers. Food for thought, folks. Think about it. Think about it. All right, we'll see you soon. I'm going to leave the link below. Food for thought, and we'll see you soon, guys. Have an awesome day.